The king is dead. But I don't know why I say that like it might be a bad thing. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, the place where Aussie new car buyers save thousands off their next new cars. Hit me up on the website for that. In this report, the definitive verdict on these allegedly unkillable I30 N brakes. We'll find out what happens to your warranty if you take your I30 N to a racetrack, and we'll find out if you can live with an I30 N on a day-to-day basis. Plus, the top 3 reasons why I30 N sticks GTI in the dirt. But first, let's take a look at what sets I30 N apart from a run-of-the-mill I30. The new I30 N is so different to the SR, and just to show you where the upgrades are, down there, I've secured some access to the super secret engineering R&D skunkworks deep inside Hyundai headquarters in Australia. So without further ado, let's get this baby off the ground. Righto mate, up we go.
3, 2,
Cover me.
1,
we're going in.
Fire.
Okay, you've got your proper front brake cooling ducts. That's important. There's your additional structural reinforcement underneath, transmission tunnel brace and front cross-member triangulation. You get electronically selectable multi-mode dampers, the big fat in-house brakes, of which audacious claims are made, and a limited slip e-diff driven by this high-speed servo motor. There's a rear strut brace. You get torque and boost indicators, of course, plus one-touch N-mode selection, N for fun, obviously. Shift light, rev matching, infinitely customizable, just about everything. But if you're looking for an auto or a dual clutch transmission, best move on. There's nothing for you to see here. The i30 N is a 6-speed manual only, at least for now. This pre-launch test opportunity is quite brave. Hyundai's spanner-spinning Stig, also known colloquially as Pete, got this car essentially off the boat yesterday, and he gave it a once-over and a 400-kilometre road test and run-in. And then he handed me the keys. As Colgate once famously said, that's confidence. So I guess the least we can do now is go out there and see how it actually drives. If you're seriously thinking about buying an i30 N, you'll probably watch a billion reviews or something online, and a great many of those reviewers are going to wax lyrical about straight line performance. They're going to talk to you about lateral grip and braking performance as well, and all of those things are reasonably impressive with this car, but they are not, emphatically not, the most impressive thing. Because any Muppet can engineer impressive straight line performance and grip and brakes and all of that sort of thing. People do this all day long at the weekend in their garages building up club races, don't they? The most impressive thing about this car is the integration of those performance aspects into a package that's so easy and so satisfying to drive. See, the real impressive thing about this car is its breadth of capability, because you can put your rugrats in the back and drop them off at school, and that's fine, and they'll never know. And then on the way home, you can go and pick up your frail, aging parents and take them out for a nice civilized coffee or whatever, and they'll never know. And then on the way home, you can flick one little button down here on the steering wheel and engage the bright red N performance mode, and you can drive home on a favourite piece of twisty back road in exactly the manner that would have the rugrats hurling their guts out all over the carpet, and Granny and Grandpa hooked up to those machines in intensive care that go beep. And that's what's so brilliant about this car. It just feels right. It feels right in traffic, and it feels right when you're having a red hot go. And in some respects, you know, the harder your red hot go and the more finesse you pump into this car, the more rewarding it is to drive and the more impressive it is. It's like seriously scary fast if you know what you're doing. If you're a train spotter, of course, you can spot an I30 N a mile away. You can look for the red piping under the bumper in the front and the back, and the 19-inch wheels with the Pirelli P0s are a bit of a giveaway as well. But if you're just somebody who doesn't really care about cars, like 95% of people driving them out there today, this car is going to fly well under the radar. So it doesn't scream performance animal, and I guess that's a two-edged kind of marketing sword, isn't it? If you want a screamingly hot-looking performance car, this ain't it. But if you just want a car to satisfy yourself driving around a bend and fly under the radar, well, hey, this is it. Some cars are just brilliantly sorted, and you know that because within 5 minutes of driving it, it just feels like, I don't know, your favourite pair of slippers or something. It's more complex than that though, because you can accommodate the control infrastructure and the architecture, and the feedback all feels right. And then you just go into driving mode and you tell the car what to do without a whole lot of analytical thought about what you're doing with the steering and the throttle and the brakes and whatever. And the car just goes out and does that, and it does it brilliantly. In many cases, at least my experience of it, is that the car kind of looks at you and says, "Is that all you got? You want to have another crack at that?" You know, it's just great fun to drive on an engaging piece of windy road like this. I guess if I had to name one thing that I really love about driving the I30 N, it's the performance once you clip the apex. This is kind of a critical thing, right, for driving, because the whole complexity of driving is all about cornering performance and getting that right. And it's so complex because cornering force is proportional to the square of your velocity, so it's hard to get that right. And entry speed is really critical as well, and that's managed by hitting the brakes at the last possible point and washing off just that Goldilocks amount of speed to get the entry velocity correct into the corner. And then you don't run wide, you clip the apex, and then you put the power down and you get on the way out with the steering unwinding. And the brilliant thing about this car is the electronically controlled limited slip differential up the pointy end. It just gives this car Superman grip on the way out. It's so impressive. It's hard to describe from the driver's seat, but it's really easy to feel. And once you've felt it, you don't want to go back. This is quite a tight right-hand bend, so imagine a snapshot in time on the limit of adhesion, just a couple of meters away from the apex. You've got weight transfer forward because you're not on the gas, you're slowing down. That's like Newton's second law, or D'Alembert's principle if you want to be a complete knob about it. Sigma F plus ma equals 0. Whole bunch of additional weight from inertia on the front end. And then you're cornering as well, so the body's rolling this way, right? And that means there's a whole bunch of lateral inertial load doing this, loading up the front left-hand tyre. That's important to know because the most load is on the front left-hand tyre. It's the one in the position to give the most thrust on the way out of the bend. Unfortunately, it means this tyre's unloading a little bit and more likely to spin. And that's why the electronic differential is so brilliant. It looks at the steering wheel position, the body's yaw response, your throttle position, makes a whole bunch of intelligent computational choices. Then, if the front right-hand wheel starts to spin, it grabs that shaft, effectively transferring the torque over here. And that does two things. The most heavily loaded wheel is in a position to offer the most thrust. That's all good. The second all good thing about that is the thrust is happening over here. So that increases the yaw response of the body and keeps it turning instead of pushing wide. And this is why the electronic differential is such a good thing at the limit of adhesion. You have to be a bit brave, you've got to grow a pair and get on the gas early, but if you do, it's like riding on a slingshot. It just grabs you and throws you through the exit of the bend. You've got to have a crack at this. It is absolutely awesome. It's always nice, isn't it, to make a humbling confession in front of thousands of people. And I have one to make for you now, and it concerns the rev matching function that you get with this N drive mode. Okay, you just hit that right hand button. It invokes all of those N driving features, including the rev matching on downshifting. I talked to the product guys about this. They were effusive about it, how well it worked, and I thought, yeah. Well, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you'll know that I'm a heel-toe gear-changing nutcase, a drill sergeant of sorts when it comes to that. And I thought, yeah, there's no way it can be better than me at that. I've done heel and toe downshifts till the cows come home. I must have done 100,000 of them in my life. So what you do is, with this car, you just jam your foot on the brake on the way in, and you downshift the old-fashioned way, like any Muppet who's ever got his driver's license on a manual. And the computer reaches into the throttle and blips it at exactly that right Goldilocks moment, and it's brilliant. I hate to tell you, it's a hell of a lot better than me, it's a hell of a lot better than you, it's a hell of a lot better than Ayrton Senna would be if he was still with us. It just manages to blip the throttle at that absolute Goldilocks moment, and so briefly, in the way that you can't if you're doing it yourself, with the ball of your foot jammed on the brakes and the outside edge of your foot rolled over onto the throttle. You versus computer. Computer 1, you nil. Rev matching rocks. Let's take a look. Okay, 5th gear right now, having a cruise, coming up to a tight right-hander, foot on the brake, grabbing 4th, blip automatically, coming into a hairpin. Now we're going to go for 3rd early. There's the automated blip. Now we're going to go for 2nd. Here we go, feel that, bit of a crackle as well, I like that. A bit more crackle, lovely. 2nd gear, up to 3rd briefly, on the brakes, back to 2nd, automated blip. These changes are so smooth, they're silk, they really are. It's brilliant. And then of course there's these frankly ludicrous claims by Albert Biermann, the big bratwurst of Hyundai's N division, the former BMW M dude, about the unkillable, allegedly, I30 N brakes. So I said to the chaps at Hyundai, I'm not entirely convinced these claims are not a load of horseshit. And they said, yeah? Why don't you come to our super secret test track and drive its tits off and see for yourself? To which I cleverly responded, okay. Hyundai says one of the i30N's big tricks is you can take it to a racetrack and have a bit of responsible fun, drive as hard as you like, and you won't kill the brakes or the tyres. They say you can do all that and then just drive home. So let's put that to the test. This is an insane chicane, and it's really technically challenging. You know, wherever you overcook it in a chicane, like there, you're going to pay for it a hell of a lot later on. But it'd take me about 10 laps to get this track really nailed, and that's all I've got. I can't tell you anything about the facility except there's a lot of high-speed ABS activation stops, like this one right here. You can hear it in the background, I'm sure. We're really cracking on here, and the car feels rock solid, and it's so communicative. That rev matching, I tell you what, it's so good. It's better than I could ever heel and toe downshift. On one level, I hate that philosophically, but on the practical matter of actually getting around this track quickly, I don't ever want to go back to a car without the rev matching, because this is just brilliant. Here we go, 160 k's, full brake application, into the bend, back to 2nd. E-diff engagement just drags the car out, fantastic. Hard on the brakes again. This is very demanding on the brakes, this circuit, and I'm not getting anything except a rock hard pedal underfoot. I don't know what they did with those N brakes, But whatever it was, it's the right secret sauce, I tell you what. This is fast on the back straight, 165 k's an hour, hard on the brakes, into third, into second, just making it, that's cool. On the brakes again, in third this time, a little bit more composed now, getting the power down. Out wide for a left-hander, on the gas early, the e-diff, thank you very much. And on the brakes hard here, big hairpin. This one's hard too, you don't know whether to have 2 bites at it or not. I'll take one. Probably not setting a lap record anytime soon, but having a bunch of fun. Hey, what's more important, you've got to ask yourself. This is the kind of driving, you know, that 95% of the population just don't get. It's about making the machine do what the designer intended, or at least the limits of what the designer intended. And if you can do that, if you get the opportunity, it's so satisfying. You don't have to have a conversation on the side of the road with some copper about what the hell do you think you're doing, mate? Here we go, this is big, $1.60 down here. Bit of a drifting right onto the brakes. They're big brake maneuvers on this circuit too, and the pedal is resisting all attempts to make it fade. It's just rock solid underfoot, thankfully enough. Oh, so forgiving, so forgiving. The car is doing, I have to say for the record, a much better job than me. Here we go again, the back straight, coming up for 160 k's an hour. Big brake maneuver here, tell you what. Hard on the brakes, into third, coming up for second. All right. Now we've got a right and then a left, quite technically demanding here. Front tyres are working really hard here. It's downhill and there's a lot of engine braking and a lot of protracted hard cornering. This is as hard as this car goes. It's great. Right, so I've just buttoned off. This is 10 laps in. I'm a ball of sweat. This has been a real workout, and I've got to say there are very few cars, very few road cars that you could drive in this manner for 10 laps on a really demanding circuit with lots of high-speed braking and lots of lateral G, lots of really high demands on the tyres. The brake pedal is as hard right now at operating temperature after all of that braking as it was when I picked the car up this morning. That is bloody impressive. I've already covered the pricing and specifications in an earlier report. Let us not therefore detain ourselves with that now. There's a link to that report at the end. Disclaimer. I don't go on product launches because they're a complete waste of my time. So Hyundai threw me in the car for a couple of days quite early on the condition that I shut the hell up about it until the launch was over and the media embargo had lifted. And they kindly stuck a burlap sack over my head in the manner of a Hamas job interview so that I would not know the location of the super secret test track. So that was nice. But they're really not getting any say whatsoever in what I say to you in this report, and they are not paying me for this review, nor do they advertise with me. So there's church and state separation here. You get to know what I really think, therefore, and if they don't like what I say, they can just suck it up. Hyundai is the number 3 car maker in Australia by sales. They've managed to jump onto the podium without once fielding a proper performance car. But I'd suggest if they screw this up, there aren't enough paper towels in the universe to wipe the egg off their faces. Frankly, however, I see very little risk of that. The I30 N is pretty much through the posts on the full from the far end of the field. Volkswagen is going to have to try really hard from now on, and they're going to hate that. I30 N kills GTI because it offers superior performance at a lower price point. It really is that simple. You get more grunt for less cash. Maybe not as elegant, certainly not as minimalist in the styling, no heritage to speak of, and no runs on the board in this domain. But if it's performance that gets you across the line, objectively, you cannot field a compelling argument for GTI superiority. The e-diff and the rev-matching are brilliant, and it's very forgiving at the limit. You don't have to be race competent to enjoy driving this car on the track, but if you are, you will love it. This is an exceptionally rewarding, fun performance car. The ESC in Sport Plus mode, well, it's hardly restrictive. It hands you a hell of a lot of rope. And like all performance cars, if you prove to be a Muppet and you crash, it's probably not going to be a particularly slow one. Obviously, being manual only, that's going to turn some people away. The in-cabin noises are, well, they'd say enhanced, and I'd say fake. So I was philosophically pre-wired to detest them. But they actually sound pretty good. Certainly, they don't sound fake, and I guess that's the acid test of a good fake in every domain. Watches, handbags, breasts, and now in-cabin ambient. The exhaust crackle from the bimodal exhaust, that serves absolutely no purpose, except it makes you smile every time, and I guess that's enough. Maybe it's a character flaw. I'll just add it to the list. However, and this is a big however, I'd stop short of saying the i30 N is a better car than the i30 SR or a Mazda 3 SP25 Estina. Better is the wrong word. It's better if you want a performance car. But if you just want a reasonably sporty car with a bunch of refinement and packed with luxury features, the other two are going to be better for you. In other words, there's no perfect car, and a lot of the choice really boils down to you. Do not, therefore, get talked into an i30 N on the showroom floor purely on the premise of top of the range equals best. If you want all the premium features and you're not gagging to drive around corners on the limit, an i30 SR is going to be better for you, and it'll save you some cash. Finally, the glacé cherry on the icing of the cake of the Golf GTI's funeral is this. It's cool to review cars, and it's cool to be given exclusive access to a racetrack when a car maker wants to prove a point. At the media launch in Australia, Hyundai hired the Winton race circuit and invited the press to drive really, really fast and not crash. It's generally a meaningless stunt when car makers do this, because the minute you do this as an owner, you void the warranty. In researching this aspect of the report, I've been told several car companies in Australia enthusiastically monitor Facebook and other social mediums solely for the purpose of compiling a database of track users. This data is then used to deny warranty claims, and to me, it seems completely unethical to release a car with track type aspirations and market those aspirations to get you across the line and then operate in this undignified way under the radar. In short, I believe doing that is a mongrel act. Hyundai tells me in writing that if you take your i30 N to a track, your warranty will survive. Hyundai says as long as it's a non-competition event, which I take to mean race broadly, then Hyundai says there will not be a Spanish Inquisition on a warranty claim following you driving it like you stole it for kicks in a safe, controlled environment, which, as you've seen, can be rather therapeutic. They tell me they will even honour the warranty if you put a set of track performance-oriented tyres on your car for even more grippy goodness. Yes! Try getting a commitment like that out of Volkswagen. I'm John Cadogan. The best thing about the i30 N is you can drive it to the track, you can blow out your cobwebs without breaking it, you can emerge like an inverted James Bond martini, stirred but not shaken, and then drive it home, all without carrying a trailer full of spare parts or even touching a spanner. If you're the kind of sick, twisted pervert who enjoys that kind of thing, I feel your pain. What a terrible affliction. Thanks for watching.